how do we sell income protection, or as you may more commonly know it, disability insurance? Now, the reason we have Brett O'Brien and Matt Reardon here is because they're two of the best, just like all of our next gen panelists and attendees from this event. So Matt, why don't you lead us off here? I want to know a little bit about, yes, how do we sell DI, but I want to know your backstory of how you got involved in DI and how you found the conviction of why DI is so important.
That's a great question, Robert, and what a great panel so far and session. Thank you so much, Brett, for really spearheading this. You've been a champion for us over the last couple months, my guy. And Robert, you're a phenomenal moderator, man. Keep it up. Appreciate it. When I think back about my journey in insurance, it always goes back to my upbringing, and it's kind of a personal story, and we all have them. Brett, thank you so much for sharing earlier. But I grew up in a family of 9, and I had a brother that was developmentally disabled, and he had a lot of severe health issues. And I took care of him a lot of my formative years, and I saw basically the effect that it had on him and the effect that it had on my family. And it wasn't just the physical side, it was the emotional side. And when I look back on it and I think about why I'm so passionate about disability insurance, is because I've experienced morbidity firsthand. Disability insurance obviously is different than what happened to my brother. The conversation is different, and he was developmentally disabled, but there's a lot of parallels there. And the conviction I have really comes from that. I love my brother. He was an amazing person, and he changed my life forever. So when I got out of college, I was working as a landscaper. I love hard work. I was really enjoying it, and I was like, this is my career path. I eventually fell in love with it, and I had a buddy that told me about this guy, George Davis, and he's like, Matt, like, you really could use a mentor. You could really use someone that can guide you in your working career. And I was like, great, I'm excited to meet him. We had a call. It was probably a 15-20-minute conversation. He explained what we did at Secura, and I was just so excited to get an opportunity. I can't thank him enough. And he has really been a phenomenal mentor, friend, coach in my 10 years at Secura. So I started as an intern. I finally understood what we did. And like I said, my passion and my conviction came from my understanding of how important this product could be to families and to people. And it's really never gone away. So I started as an intern, worked into an account management. Now over the last 2 years, I've been vice president of operations here, focusing more on making our business more effective and efficient and just scaling it. But I love disability insurance. I love talking about how to position it and how to sell it. So excited to be here. And Brett, you did a great job earlier explaining your why and need, but I think we should hear from our good buddy, Robert Clark. I know he's got a heck of a story, and I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Matt. And I love that connection that you have to, taking care of somebody who wasn't 100%. It's one of those things. And actually, let me take a step back. I didn't properly introduce you, Matt Reardon. I won't share your nickname here. I'll let our attendees figure it out on their own. But Matt Reardon is joining us from Minneapolis, Minnesota, our Plus Group office out there. So thank you again, Matt. But what I was going to say is, this just happened again yesterday. People are like, oh, what do you do for work? And when they asked me, I said, I'm a disability insurance specialist. And, people could not be less interested after you tell them that. But what I usually follow up with, they'll give you some BS like, oh, that's interesting. And I usually say, it's really not, but I appreciate that. The reason I do it is because my dad battled cancer for 20 years and I grew up on a disability insurance benefit. So it's kind of a passion project. As soon as I say that, it wakes people up. They're like, oh man. And as soon as I say that, they're thinking, man, my aunt had cancer, or I know my sister had cancer, or, it just starts getting them thinking about, wait a second, I know some people that have gone through similar situations like that. This is more relevant, than just disability insurance. So I love that you have that story. I encourage our attendees to think of, any stories or anything that's close to home or close to their hearts where a disability has impacted a friend or family member. So I love that. Brett, I'm going to come your way. Your first session was awesome, and I think you even touched on it a little bit, but I'm just going to hit you with this blanket question. How do you sell disability insurance?
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing your stories. Personal stories, I think, are the backbone of the disability conversation. So highly recommend, everybody develop their own story and really personalize their conversation with their clients. But to your question, I think there's a really broad shotgun approach you can take to this. Personally, I think the cold calling and the reaching out to people you don't know and having this conversation is going the way of the dinosaur. I think that with the information that we have at our fingertips, I kind of mentioned how somebody can log online and have access to your whole profile. They can see, what you were doing 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and know what you're into these days. The people that you're connecting with are going to be your best opportunity to have these conversations. So you really want to look at your centers of influence. So if I were a new disability producer, I would look at what I love to do and what I'm passionate about, in my life. I have a regular group of golf friends that I like to golf with. That's an opportunity for me to have a conversation with friends where they're not going to be saying no immediately. They're going to be willing to listen to my conversation. Some of the things advisors that we work with do is they join local chambers of commerce. They get in touch with organizations that take volunteers and need volunteer work because that's what they're passionate about. I think these centers of influences are things that we can really set up to set ourselves up for success. NAFA is an excellent organization. We have a large chapter here in Atlanta, and NAFA's all over the country. You're really plugging into other insurance professionals and networking that way as well, because there are advisors out there that aren't having this conversation with their clients, and you as an advisor can develop that trusted relationship, create referrals for yourself, and go into a type of model that I know Matt, I know all these Plus Group offices are using all over the country to help their advisors really sell insurance products. It's not just a Amazon, go read the reviews, buy a product sale anymore. It's maybe we need help taking application. Maybe we need to have a conversation with the client on behalf of the advisor. All of these Plus Group offices that we work with, that you will work with, are fully equipped to be able to have these conversations and help you out. Matt, I was thinking maybe you could jump in and tell us a little bit more about the different models of, distribution sales that the Plus Group brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely, Brett. I think, when I look at the different distribution models we have the classical brokerage where you can come and get top level service, expertise that everyone can expect in the brokerage industry. I would say I think the Plus Group is a touch above the rest. We really, our attention to detail, our love of the product is second to none. And I got results recently. I think we were about 20% of the total production in the country. So, I think that speaks to the level of intentionality we have and success that we have. And I think my gut's telling me a lot of that is coming from what we would call classical brokerage. But over time, what we're seeing as a major growth area is more where we call like the exclusive or broker's broker model, where you can actually partner along an advisor and guide them through the process. And whatever that split arrangement is or fee, you can determine. Every Plus Group office has a different system. Ours is pretty simple. We can do a fee if that's what they're looking for, one payment. That's perfectly fair. Another option that we offer, and I know the Plus Group offers, is just taking the application and seeing it through underwriting. Typically, that's 10 or 15% of the total compensation. That's nothing. It's pennies on the dollar when you have an expert taking the app, explaining the concepts, handling any objections that are coming in last minute, and that's nothing. Another option that we have that, again, our firm splits may be different, is 25%. The only difference there is we're taking the application, seeing it all the way through underwriting, but we're also positioning it. And the difference is they have to establish the need on the front end, right? And they have to explain the concept and then gather information. And then our dedicated licensed internal expert has a conversation. And the last one that we offer is just a direct client handoff. It's easy. Give me a name. Here's a good list of prospects. I'll go have a conversation. And that's typically 50% of the compensation. With our office, I know every office has different setups, but we're seeing major growth in the exclusive and concierge areas of our business. And I highly recommend advisors that, everyone has done such a good job in the session explaining the need if you don't know the need after the session, I don't know what to tell you. I can also understand everyone has different priorities. Everyone has different expectations of their day. So reach out, learn more about these exclusive services, and I guarantee you, your clients will be better served.
Yeah, I love that, Matt. That's, for at least financial advisors specifically, I see so many, bringing on junior advisors to start, taking over some of their book or helping them with smaller clients. The broker's broker model is very similar to having a junior advisor. Have that dedicated person in your office, or if you're on this call and not tied to a specific product line and you really want to specialize and niche yourself, think about being a broker's broker and building that relationship of trust with certain financial advisors where all you do is their client's income protection. And one of the most important things, like you said, Matt, if you don't know how to establish the need after our last hour of conversation, then maybe you've been a little light on listening. The one commentary I would add to what's already been laid out today is that when it comes to income protection, we are not just protecting someone's income for 1 year. So if they earn $200,000 a year, we're not just protecting $200,000. What we really need to look at is that individual's career earnings. So if they're 35 and they're going to retire at 65 and they earn $100,000 per year, we're not insuring $100,000. We're insuring $3 million. And so I think talking about it in that way, we're going to talk about some of the objections that we hear in the disability insurance or income protection world. And I think as we kind of change the paradigm of how we talk about it and establish that need, we're going to address a lot of those objections in advance. So Brett, coming back your way on the topic of objections, I guess I'll let you just tee this one up yourself. What is a common objection that you hear from clients, and how do you help advisors address that?
Yeah, I think we even had this come up in the chat box, but one of the biggest objections is this thing costs too much. Insurance is it's designed for a specific purpose, and actuaries have jobs because they're able to figure out the math and the statistics behind the likelihood of somebody becoming, dying, whether it be mortality or morbidity, becoming disabled, and the products are priced appropriately to be able to reflect that risk. It's our job as advisors to make sure what the second session really dived into, which was design a specific plan for each specific client. So if you're going to show a Cadillac to every client, not every client's going to walk out of the car lot with a Cadillac. There are people that are going to want a car that's going to be a hybrid, or a car that's going to get them just from point A to point B. And it's our job as advisors to really have that conversation. I go back to my first session. I think the conversation is the most important part. You're going to learn quickly if your client is, going to be someone who's more likely to want a fully comprehensive risk protection portfolio, or if they're going to want something that's just going to, meet the need for getting you through, a tough time, whether it be for 6 months, 12 months, or a couple years. And these disability insurance products have multiple benefit periods where we can do, anywhere from as short as 2 years to 5 years, 10 years, to age 65, 67, and even 70 in some cases. So we've got multiple levels of flexibility there, levers we can pull to really design a plan to get over that it costs too much conversation. Establishing the need on the front end is going to reduce some of those objections from a cost perspective, but that conversation is going to come up at every step of the process, because people are going to be looking for ways to spend that money on something else. Maybe they want to do something to their home, or they want to go on a trip. There's other things that are a lot more sexy to spend that money on than insurance, but because we don't have that crystal ball, we have to make sure we put together a plan that somebody's going to be willing to say yes to at the end of the day.
That's very well said. I completely agree with you. And I think there's two quotes that I think about a lot when I get this objection. Is one, in the absence of value, price is king, right? You nailed it, right? You need to know your customer. You need to know what they purchased it for. And Robert, I love what you said. We're always constantly comparing annual premiums to monthly benefits. Why are we doing that to ourselves? Let's look at the total number and what the real risk is, right? And then you nailed it too, Brett. I mean, you got to be confident to adjust strategies based upon needs. There's, like you said, different levers. And the thing that I always reflect on when I have an advisor that won't sell a 5-year benefit period is that, you know, the best policy a client can have is the one they own at claim time, right? Let's not leave a conversation and not have a starter policy. Let's at least have a plan. We can all agree whether or not it's a good plan, but at least it's a plan. And I think that's the thing that's really important. And then, you know, you got to build into your process establishing a budget. At some point after you've done a needs analysis, after you've discussed their priorities, you got to bring up the budget. It's just so pivotal to the discussion. And it can be just as easy as, look, understanding we've agreed that there's going to be an impact, right? If I come back to you with a solution that's going to solve this issue for $100 a month, would you move forward? And then be quiet. They're going to tell you yes or no. And don't use the annual premium number. Use the monthly number. Keep the conversation going. Make sure that they're focusing on the why, you know, the protection and the need and the actual risk. So I think all your points were great, Brett. And Robert, do you have anything to add to that? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that most of the time when we hear an objection and, you know, the advisor isn't sure how to respond, I think that more just speaks to the lack of conviction that the advisor really has about how critical income really is to the financial plan or anything else that they're protecting. You know, when you look at asset for asset, the value of somebody's house versus the value of their income, the income is going to be astronomically more than the house or any other asset on that balance sheet. And the same goes for if they're reviewing a financial plan. What good is that financial plan if you only have 1 or 2 years of income to fund it? And so I think anytime that you are experiencing objections of, you know, why should I buy this? What does it cover? Do I really need it? Is it going to happen to me? And you're allowing that individual's questions to actually throw you off course. I think that more means that you as the advisor are lacking conviction. And what panel 2 talked about, I think they drove it home, all 3 individuals did, is the importance of buying DI on yourself. Now, maybe you're not in a place where you need disability insurance. A lot of advisors are. I'm actually working with an advisor who's battling cancer right now, and for the last 5 years swore that he did not need disability insurance. Well, in fact, he's proving wrong right now by everything that he's going through, only being in the office 1 day a week, and his clients are struggling with it and his business is struggling with it. Now his income and the money is not the most important thing, but does it help? Does it help bring in a replacement, or does it help actually create that transition to where he can offload some clients to a partner advisor so he can make sure the clients are being best served? So there's just so many different ways where income protection is a valuable resource. And I think if you are getting hung up on certain objections, that is the root cause of that is the lack of conviction you have in the importance of disability insurance.
Yeah, I'm playing off that really quick. I know we have a few other objections, but it may just not be the right time for the client too, right, Robert? I mean, I literally just had this happen this week. An attorney that we had a conversation with 6 months ago. Speaking candidly, he's a little obtuse. He it wasn't a great conversation. And that happens, right? You catch him on the wrong day, whatever it may be. He called our office this week. His brother-in-law just had a stroke, had no plan in place, and they're scrambling. And he basically apologized. You know, so things do change. So don't lose your conviction because you got a few no, right? Give people the opportunity to say yes and go on to the next client. Keep giving the message.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because someone says no today doesn't mean they're going to say no tomorrow too. You know, like this is not a conversation that's going to just click overnight. You know, I think what they say, it takes 4 or 5 times of us hearing something before it sinks in. So just because somebody said no to you today doesn't mean that they're, you know, not interested or not going to be willing to say yes down the road.
4 or 5. I thought it was 40 or 50, but maybe
probably.
maybe my parents were just adjusting to me. Brett, we actually had a question come in on the chat from Charlie, who's been very active in the chat. I appreciate it, Charlie. And I'm coming to you with this one because I know you've talked about it in the past, and especially as we were preparing for this session. But you know, if when a client has group LTD through their employer, you know, and they bring that up in the meeting of, oh, I already have it, it's taken care of. You know, how are you advising advisors to speak on that topic?
Yeah, I love this objection because this is the easiest objection to overcome. Group LTD, everyone on this call is a big fan of group LTD. I think the group LTD plans that are in place, I think benefits are getting cut left and right as employers are shifting their mindsets to, you know, medical, and they're not necessarily thinking about some of these ancillary benefits. So I think we're seeing less and less employers offering a really robust group LTD plan. But when somebody says they've got it, that's a green light, in my opinion, because group LTD does a couple things really, really well, and it falls short in a couple other areas. Group LTD spreads the risk among a group of employees that lowers the cost. You're not going to be able to find disability insurance at a lower cost than you will with group LTD coverage. So the base layer, I like to call it the base layer of coverage, it's excellent because you're getting a benefit that's being provided most likely by your employer. Maybe there's some sort of employee buy-in for a portion of it, but you're getting a benefit that's providing that base layer at a low cost. The reason the individual plan makes sense is because when an employer pays for group disability coverage for an employee, the benefits become taxable to the employee. So the employee has to consider that tax implication. You know, said another way, if you have a $5,000 a month benefit from your employer, you're going to be receiving that benefit on a tax basis. So roughly, you know, $3,400, $3,500 after taxes. So you have to take into account the gap that is created from a taxability standpoint. And that's what the individual protection does, because individual coverage is almost always paid for with after-tax dollars, resulting in a tax-free benefit. So that's kind of the benefit calculation on group LTD that I love. One of the other you know, considerations with group LTD that makes it not as strong as individual is the portability of the product. As you know, somebody entering the workforce, people are changing jobs all the time, starting new businesses, coming up with side hustles. Maybe they've got an Etsy shop, you know, who knows what they're doing. But most people are not staying with their same employer that they started with right out of college. I know very few people that have, you know, in my world. So knowing that your situation is going to change, that you're going to shift from, you know, one employer to another, and you're not going to be able to take that group plan with you, you can lock up your insurability with an individual plan that can either grow or shrink based upon your need for your next employer with your next employer. So if you go from one job to the next job and you need a little bit more coverage on your individual plan, it's designed to do that. If you go from job A to job B and you need a little bit less, it's designed to do that as well. So the portability is huge with an individual plan, and that's really a consideration that the group LTD plan can't provide. Let me see. So the last aspect of group LTD that you know, you need to consider is what benefits are you actually getting. The most group plans are not going to be your Cadillac plan. They're not going to be benefits that are going to be payable to age 67 to age 65 for an own occupation disability definition. So partner with your Plus Group office. If somebody tells you that they have a group LTD plan, say, perfect. Send me a copy of your plan. You know, ask your HR team, can we get a copy of this? Provide that to your Plus Group office, and every single one of these Plus Group offices is going to be, you know, very in tune with combing through that, looking through the language, and then pointing out the benefit periods, the lengths, the definitions, you know, the features that are involved in that group plan. And then you can then report back to the client and say, here's what we've discovered. This is what we've got. You know, does it make sense to buy a little extra coverage from an individual perspective to accomplish these goals that we've got set forth?
I love that, Brett. I think you nailed it. I don't know if I have anything to add. It's super helpful, but I do think that the best question to ask is, after they have that, is what is it? What do you have? You know, How much of your income does it cover? And the thing that we talk a lot about in Plus Group and in our office is just diagnosis without examination is malpractice, right? And a prudent person is going to want to review what they have, discuss the deficiencies, and make a decision at the end of that. But ultimately, if you're not reviewing the group booklet and you're not giving your client sound advice, you're not doing your fiduciary responsibility. And it'd be kind of like if Robert asked me, Matt, how do you, what do you drive? And I responded, a car. And Robert didn't say anything else. It doesn't make any sense. You don't know. I didn't give you anything. Like, good job, Matt. You have a car. So like, ask a few more questions. You don't have to make it. It can be conversational. So well done, Brett. I think you nailed everything there.
Gosh, I love that example, Matt. Tim Berry in the chat pointed out something very important, and I usually talk about this in the employee benefits market. When someone says there's a group LTD product already in place, I almost want to say 100% of the time, but 99.9% of the time, there is always a gap in that group LTD policy. So anytime a client, a one-off individual client says, I have LTD through my employer, know that there's likely gaps. And I'll give you a story because this just happened this week as well. We had a client, the advisor had his client in here and was talking about disability insurance as it related to their financial plan. Same exact conversation. Said, oh, I have that through work. They moved us to W-2 employees and LTD is one of the new benefits. Said, perfect. Send us the LTD booklet and we'll review it and we'll incorporate that into your plan. After reviewing that booklet, the LTD benefit was a 50% income up to $1,000 per month benefit cap. And this is for an individual who makes over $200,000 per year. So we put together exactly, where that minimal LTD benefit comes into play, where California state disability insurance would come into play. And once we communicate that to a client, they're going, okay, hold on, time out. I need to fix this like right away. And so generally it's just that education process. But even if that was a 60% income replacement plan, to $20,000 per month, there's generally limitations in the definition, the own occupation versus any occupation definitions, the portability. There's so many different things that Brett covered that are so true. So Tim Berry, thank you for pointing that out.
And Robert, one real quick thing, my friend, and I wanted to bring it up because Brett said it, is, we talked about the actuaries pricing this. The funny thing is a lot of times the actuaries pricing the individual product are also pricing the group. Why do you think that there's such a discrepancy? It's not just the law of large numbers. We all know that.
Yeah, absolutely. I say that all the time. Group LTD policies are designed for the employer, not the employees. So keep that in mind. That's why private disability plans are the only plan you will design that is built for you and not your employer. Gentlemen, do we have anything else? I know we're hitting the top of the half hour here, wrapping up on our next gen DI day. Brett, any other color you want to bring to our conversation today?
Yeah, I just want to finish with saying, thank you for everybody for coming. We at the Plus Group have a wealth of marketing information available to you. So if you're looking to put together a campaign, or if you need help putting together a social media post to just generate awareness through your network, reach out to your Plus Group offices. We all have social media toolkits we can provide to you. There are, plenty of tools out there and resources available. So, don't try to reinvent the wheel. The wheel's already been invented. We can just put your name on it and brand it to you and help you have this conversation. We've got a video from Max. We can finish up here with, if you want me to just go ahead and hit play on this, I can do it. Max Schmitz is based out of California, but living in Chicago now, and just welcomed his third child into the mix last week. So his wife, Maddie, just had their third. Oh, Max is with us. Awesome. So we didn't know if Max was going to be able to make it, so we had him record his video. Max, do you want to tee it up for us?
Hey guys. Yeah, thanks for having me today. Wasn't sure if I was going to make it. I literally just ran downstairs again because I heard fire alarms going off, not even exaggerating. But we're doing it live with our third here. So pardon if it looks like I'm on paternity leave. I mean, this is just always such a good reminder. It's our third time doing this, that I can't leave the office for 5 days without seeing an effect in my business. So we're here talking about disability coverage, talking about people recovering for periods of months, if not years. And it's so obvious that there's going to be, a massive disruption when you're battling a serious illness or injury. So just wanted to kind of double down on that before I press play here. And then while I'm doing that, I'm probably going to go shore up my BOE policy and practice what I preach a little bit. But first of all, I just, wouldn't be remiss without saying thank you to you guys. You guys have done an excellent job with this program. Brett, especially. I mean, you guys you've been holding it down, and I would love to give you a virtual round of applause, whatever that means these days, because you deserve all the kudos for that. And thank you guys on the panel as well for doing it and making it happen. This is awesome. All right, cool. So with that, I'm going to try to share this screen. Oops, disabled screen sharing. Maybe you could do that.
I got it for you, man.
Okay, cool. Appreciate you.
Give me 2 seconds here.
Sweet.
Did the fire alarms turn off, Max?
Yeah, there was a button on those that you just press, but I had to do it. So,
all right, I'm going to hit play here.
Cool.
Hey everyone, thanks for your time and attention today. It's been a day, and you're probably thinking about all the things you got to get back to right after this. Or maybe you're multitasking right at this very moment. Or if you weren't, now you're thinking about it. So I kindly invite you to just slow it down for a sec, close your eyes and take a deep breath. In fact, take one more. Now you're probably thinking, of course, the guy from San Francisco is just going to lead us through some communist breathing exercises. Wrong, my friend. This is a story of disability. So this time, let's take just one more deep breath, but make sure you're acknowledging how big of a breath it is, how much your lungs are expanding, how much air is sustaining you. And then exhale. Now take half that breath and exhale. Now take half of that breath and exhale. Now you're at about 25% of your full lung capacity. And now try to breathe like that for the rest of your life. That's the reality my mom was facing this time last year. Before my mom's lung transplant, I had spent 10 years as a disability insurance specialist, helping people find plans to protect themselves financially against the strain of disabling illness. So I'm no stranger to the thought of disability, to disability statistics, or even the language of disability. But nothing can prepare you for the emotional duress of a disability event. This is where community and research are so vastly important. Disability is personal, oftentimes quiet, sheltered, unassuming. A proud and boisterous social butterfly like my mom can quickly reverse metamorphose back into a protective cocoon. At first it can feel temporary, just until I get a handle on this. It's acute after all. I have this condition, but at least there's a roadmap forward. But after a few weeks, months, years, it's starting to look like life is not answering your questions the way you thought it would. Mental health begins to atrophy, and voices you haven't heard in years begin to float up from your deep subconscious, breaching the tensile surface between your positivity barrier and into your daily aphorisms. One step at a time, you got this, and tomorrow are subverted by, what's the point? It's not worth it. And never. Most loved ones close their mind to this negativity. We've got to stay positive, keep battling, not with that attitude. And their words might be meant to fight an encroaching fear about the prospects of their own future, maybe one without you. And it's evident that they're attempting to retune their own psychological interference, and as this noise dissipates, it's clear that this need to stay upbeat really stems from their association with you and your experience, begging the question, am I bringing them to this sadness? Now this thought gets you down even further. Instinctively, you know your path, your survival, your grace all depend on facing the truth, and that requires meeting every possibility head on, even the worst. But some are too scary, and so you just glance, and it thrusts you back behind the curtain. You're their rock, but your fear melts into their fear, and fear with a capital F doesn't add or multiply, but exponentiates, because you know they can't handle crossing that ocean without you. Hell, they wouldn't even be here without you. And so you see their tactics, their strategy to keep it all bottled up in a cage instead of taking a seat at the table. And now it's a game. You know, you're on edge. Your spouse withdraws. Your kids lash out. Your grandkids are none the wiser. Will they even know you? Not the way you want to be known. Maybe not at all. You know the animosity stems from this illness, from this cruel challenge, but no one wants to come clean about how they're feeling. Suddenly everyone's studying their own reflection, their backs to one another as they all face the subject of mortality, theirs and yours, but not looking to you, not seeking your thoughts because of what they're afraid to hear. So everyone's emotions run amok. No one's able to lasso their emotions into submissions. No one's able to sit them down, to help them take a deep breath and say exactly what is going on here. No one even knows how to tie the rope for the lasso. And this is the reality of disability. This is the face of disability that no one wants to stare into. It can start with chronic pain from a lingering back issue, from a cancer that won't quit, or a neurodegenerative disorder like MS, Parkinson's, or ALS, where the uncertainty of every day can feel like too much to take on. Or it can be like my mom's case, interstitial lung disease. Now, interstitial lung disease literally means nothing and everything. My mom was down to 25% lung capacity. Her lungs were dying, and no medical professional could tell us how, why, or what to do from there outside of a lung transplant. It's been a somewhat repetitive series of despair, confusion, hope, and resignation. Each one of those four compounds laced together like the nucleic acid sequence that permeates every interaction, petulantly adding to the compound like DCHR, HDCH, RHCDR, CRCCD, etc. And through this, what's clearer to me than ever before is just how little we know about the human body, especially our lungs. Every amateur physician has the same first question. Did she smoke? Yes, I explained, but she quit after September 11th, 2001 because, and I quote, she didn't want to be looking for a cigarette if the world was going to hell in a handbasket. Now, this conversation, futile from a clinical perspective at least, allows the space to think back to that time and honor the mental fortitude and sacrifice that it truly takes to beat a smoking addiction. Her determination, perhaps her stubbornness, but mostly her toughness. I never told her this, but one evening in the fall of 2001, right when she was starting this process of quitting, I saw her run up the steps of our backyard to behind the hill in our house as she worked through a fit of cravings. She was hunched over, bowed at the waist, silently bawling to herself as I stared out the window watching. From her bent position, she suddenly jerked upright, leaned all the way back, with her hands on her hips, tears welled in her eyes as she fixed them to the clouds, and she sucked in that pure Indian summer air that you only find in the Bay Area with glaring disdain. Disdain that the air was not flavored like a smoldering leaf. Disdain with the lack of the active ingredient fueling the addiction. Disdain of the social and commercial pressures that led her to this lonely suffering. Regardless, the irony is searing. If she could breathe like that today, it would initiate a flood of gratitude. Fortunately, the lung transplant worked. There's still a long road ahead, but we're grateful that we had the plans in place to keep them afloat financially. And even though I never personally received a check from any insurance carrier throughout this ordeal, I benefited directly from their planning and foresight. You see, my mom was our in-house underwriting expert. She went into battle, sometimes diplomatically, fought day in and day out with underwriters to secure the best possible offers for our clients. My business didn't have overhead expense coverage, but her DI policies were enough to ensure that they could stay afloat financially as their livelihood was protected. That meant that even though I wasn't getting a check, my business would reallocate her salary and distributions back to the business. so we could hire a replacement while we reshuffled our workloads in an effort to provide the best services possible for our agents and advisors. So those little DI policies were directly aiding their financial picture, inadvertently preserving our company's momentum as well. I mention this because even though we specialize in DI for business owners, we rarely thought about the effect a DI plan can really have on the business, the employees, and even the community at large. This is the essence of DI. If you put on your oxygen mask first, you give everyone else a better shot at survival as well. So thanks for tuning in today, and with that, I wish you a very happy, hearty, and lucrative DI Awareness Month. God bless.
Thank you, Max. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate everybody that's attended here today, and go sell some DI. Have a conversation. That's all we're asking. We'll talk to you guys soon, and thank you for joining us today.